We are back with more NBA coverage. Trades are in full effect. They're in full effect. Now, the very first trade of this cycle leading up to this deadline would take place earlier last Saturday when the Clippers acquired Drew Eubanks and Patty Mills from the Jazz and sent away Mo Bamba, PJ Tucker, Cash, and a 2030 second rounder to Utah. Quite the nothing trade. I figured it wasn't going to heat up much after that, and then out of left field, just a complete shocker that sent literal shockwaves throughout the entire league, the entire NBA world, in essence. Going into Sunday morning, it would be detailed that the Mavericks would trade away Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris to the Lakers in exchange for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first rounder. The Jazz were also involved and picked up Jalen Hood-Schifino from the Lakers and a couple of 2025 second round picks, including one via the Clippers. I literally did not know what to say at the moment. Everybody was in total shock. All the NBA insiders were. You had different players finding out the news during their games. You had people finding out in fucking clubs and shit, hanging out with friends. It was wild. I myself could not fathom it. I just went ballistic as I was watching SportsCenter because I could not fathom the possibility that I just saw the news I had seen at that point. And honestly, after trying to let this thing process over the past, it's 12:20 now, trying to process it since it happened. It's gotten a little better, but I still just can't believe this. I can't. And with everything that would develop from both sides, the waters are a little murkier than one may think. But there's a lot that has to be said about it. So, first of all, we get to the Lakers side of things, and more specifically in Anthony Davis's case. It gotta be the most fucked up thing ever. He literally, towards the tail end of January, he does the interview with Shams Charania and details that he would like the Lakers to go out and seek a big man so that he can play his natural position at the 4. You mean to tell me that not even a full 2 weeks after he says that, while also giving you a performance in which he put up 42 points and 23 rebounds, not even a full 2 weeks after that, you send him away to the Mavericks? That's crazy. That's crazy. Now, in terms of the Lakers acquiring Luka Doncic, offensively, it probably will not take them long to find chemistry. At least LeBron and Luka Doncic, both of them have expressed their desire to play with one another, and now it comes to fruition. Even with LeBron being 40 years old and Luka Doncic still trying to come back from injury, The numbers don't lie. They are going to be an offensive nightmare. It is going to be hell to try to stop those guys. Like, quite literally. We're not even just talking about their ability to score, with Luka Doncic being the scoring champion last season and putting up 28 points per game or so this season. We're not even talking about LeBron's ability to keep his scoring prowess going at the age of 40. We're not talking about their abilities to terrorize the glass either, because both of them do a pretty great job at that. But what this really comes down to, when you think about it, it can be argued that LeBron is the smartest basketball mind to ever play the game. You can also argue that Luka Doncic is right up there with him. I mean, literally, the two of them account for the 3 players in the league who have had 1,000 points, 300 rebounds, 10,000 points, I should say, 3,000 rebounds, and 3,000 assists since the 18-19 season. You want to know who the one other player, aside from James and Doncic, is on that list? It's Nikola Jokic. And 2 of those 3 guys are now on the same team, with both of them having the ability to generate offense. If things work out optimally, it could be just insane. But you do have to consider how you're going to allocate your touches between the two. Both of them will dominate the basketball at will. So how are you going to split it? Are you going to have it be like a 50-50 thing where you have LeBron bringing the ball up the court in some occasions and you have Luka Doncic doing a similar thing? That's one way to look at it. Because what you're not going to do is, even if one of them just stays back and tries to, give the hand or give the reins to the other for a specific possession, wouldn't necessarily be optimal to have both of them be stationary when the ball's not in their hands. Because let's be honest, the Lakers, for years now, since LeBron has been there, they've had their struggles when LeBron is out there and is stationary in like the corner or at the top of the key. You have somebody else trying to generate the offense without any movement from one of the better offensive players on the team, they get themselves in a rut. And I'm very certain that the same thing could happen with a Luka Doncic just sitting in the corner or on the wing when the ball's not in his hands. So that's something that would have to improve on both sides. Would have to be off-ball movement. Because you got to give those other players a chance. And you know that you can get a bucket at will. But you need to be able to fool around the defense a little bit. Because it makes their job easier to know that you're just going to stay in the exact same spot the entire time. So that will definitely have to fucking change. Defensively for them, they could also face problems. Because from what I would assume, you would have a starting lineup of Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, and Jackson Hayes, potentially, or Christian Koloko would be your centers at this current point in time. Not necessarily the most reliable front court out there. They may even start Dorian Finney-Smith at power forward for defense, but still, your center position is just screwed. Like, Jackson Hayes has not been consistent enough, and Christian Koloko has been a two-way player for them. That's what you'd be relying on at the 5. You're not going to find somebody to replace Anthony Davis's weight on this squad. But at the very least, I feel like you have to find another capable big man. Looking at the new acquisitions, Markieff Morris is going to be buried on the bench. He's going to get garbage time minutes, probably. Maxi Kleber would be your other option at the 5 or 4, but the thing is, the man is a walking cone in his own right. He does not solve that defensive problem. He is literally infamous for being so slow at the 4 position that every other player who is trying to attack him and get a bucket can do that with ease. And he is, though he's supposed to be this 3-and-D guy, he is so limited offensively, and rarely does he do his job effectively. Like, this is a byproduct of the fact that you chose to trade away Anthony Davis in a season where, up until a couple games ago or so, he hadn't missed a single game this season. And he had one of his better seasons with the team on the basis of averages from the field, including by far his most prolific season as a shooter from 3 since 2019. Not to mention, too, that you gave the man a 3-year, $186 million contract. Even with trading him away, you now have to eat that. You have to pay the man the rest of that money. Because a large, and I mean a large portion of that, is guaranteed. So, my thing here, I would say that the Lakers would need to try to flip Maxi Kleber. Maybe you throw in another role player or so to try to sweeten the offer to another team, but you have to flip Kleber. You can't keep him. Try to see if you can find a quality big man in that potential trade, but he can't remain with this squad. Not as constructed. It just doesn't make sense to me. As for the Mavericks' role to play in all of this shit, what the fuck? What in the actual fuck? Like, I just gotta go step by step with this shit because as everything developed, it just kind of infuriated me. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so yes, Luka Doncic had been hurt this season, but he had still been performing for you. In the initial moment, I was thinking, there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell they made the decision to trade the man. I'm thinking, this is the same guy that has been balling out for that franchise since he has gotten there. He's led them to multiple conference finals appearances, has consistently been a dominating force in the playoffs, and most recently, just last fucking season, not even a full year ago, he went on a tear in the playoffs, leading the squad to an NBA Finals appearance. And now, just like that, he's gone? For what? Then, as multiple reports kept coming in from NBA insiders and all the like, there was a quote that Tim McMenamin got from none other than the Mavericks GM, Nico Harrison. Because with the shit that I was hearing about Luka Doncic having weight problems and conditioning problems, and that was the cause of him being traded, I just completely lost my shit. But Nico Harris doubled down on it with his quote with his quote to Tim McMenamin. He doubled down, essentially. Like, hey, the weight and conditioning problems caused worry in the future of this organization with Luka Doncic, essentially. Because they had alluded to it that someone in the Mavericks organization had stated that there was a cause for concern, and here it was released to the public that the cause for concern was weight and conditioning problems on Luka Doncic's part. Now, yes, he does very much struggle with conditioning. That's been made pretty clear over the years. You know what, though? He ain't the only one. He's literally not the only one. Most relevant right now, how many times do we fucking talk about Zion Williamson having the same fucking problems? How many times do we bring that up on a season-to-season basis? Because he is a player that has had these problems and has consistently missed extended periods of time. This season has been no different, as the Pelicans are just bad overall, and a majority of those losses have come when Zion Williamson is not in the lineup, along with Brandon Ingram, but that is a different story for a different day. We can even go back to years past and name different star players that struggle with it. But guess what, Nico Harrison? Guess what, Mavericks? Luka Doncic is not fucking Zion Williamson. He is not fucking Zion Williamson. Do we really, like, do they not seem to understand that still at this point? Because let's keep it a stack. There has not been a question of the man's ability since he's gotten in the league. Yes, this injury of his has been a bit substantial, and that could derail a season. I get that. The man has appeared in more than at least 61 games in every single season up until this one. More often than not, he's been reliable and available. Durable? But he's been there. And not only has he been there, the Mavericks have been consistently contending in this particular decade, at least. They were on the ascent in the 18 and 19 seasons. I understand that part. But even then, he's still performing well individually and trying his hardest to carry the squad. Then you get into the bubble, balls out in the first round to no avail. Then he literally leads them to a conference championship. They did get smacked down by the Warriors. And then the next season in 22-23 was really just a weird one overall. Like, he played, but, they were struggling. You try to supplant it with the move to get Kyrie Irving, and then you end up just taking the season away. You get a lottery pick and that eventually becomes Derek Lively the second, then you quite literally, and I'll just get this into a second, but quite literally, he's just every single season elevating this squad. Despite all of these weight and conditioning problems you're talking about. Yes, you would want him to solve those issues and become better with that, to just get even better. If I can even realistically say that, he could realistically be even better as an individual Mavericks player if he did get in the weight room and did do a better job of conditioning his body. Like, that would just be extreme potential realized. But I say that to say he's doing all of this with that. And now, right now, that's a concern. Like, that's just some bullshit. That's some BS. Then we get another quotable from Nico Harrison over the course of some time, talking about defense wins championships. Like, that is such a dipshit statement. Of fucking course, defense wins championships. Of course it does. But what did you end up doing last season to get to the NBA Finals? You had a dynamic offense leading up to the trade deadline last season, and you saw the defense was becoming a problem. You then acquired Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington Jr. at the trade deadline, which bolstered your front court, and they turned it on defensively in the second half of the regular season and the first 3 rounds of the fucking playoffs to get to the NBA Finals last fucking season. Yes, they did crumble at the hands of a Boston team, jacking up 3 after 3 and also clamping down the Mavericks offense enough themselves. So I get that. But you have the pieces there to at least get you to an NBA championship already, arguably none bigger than Luka fucking Doncic, who offensively spurred the team by himself. Like, quite literally. For a while there, he was averaging a 30-point triple-double. It tanked a little bit in the NBA Finals, but the nigga put the team on his back and got them there with the help of a stout defense. Yes, he was being hunted in the first few rounds, but the defense did tighten up down the stretch and complement his style of play. What made you think that wasn't going to continue? And what made you think that in order to try to add an additional defensive piece, you had to trade away your franchise guy, who had been putting the team on his back every single season he'd been there? You had the formula, and you fucked it up. Defense wins championships. But guess what? In reality, this move to acquire Anthony Davis could pose problems for you as well. Now, why do I say that? Chances are, with the way that their roster looks at this current point, you're going to have a starting lineup of Kyrie Irving at point guard, Klay Thompson at shooting guard, PJ Washington maybe at small forward, Daniel Gafford at center, and Anthony Davis at power forward. At least that's how it would have to be optimally. In reality, PJ Washington Jr. is equipped to play the 4. So he would likely be moving to the bench. Klay Thompson would probably have to remain at the small forward in that situation. And then you mean to tell me that you'd be starting either Spencer Dinwiddie or Quentin Grimes? Both of them are streaky ass shooters, especially Spencer Dinwiddie. And you trust that over what Luka Doncic has been giving you over the past few seasons? Sure. Not to mention, with all of that being said, I don't know what this means for Daniel Gafford's future. I don't know what this means. They have so many front court players at this point that it's kind of hard to keep all those bodies on the same team for much longer. And I personally feel that if it comes down to them having to choose between Dereck Lively II and Daniel Gafford, they're going to go with Dereck Lively II at that center position. And that means that Daniel Gafford might be on the move. Despite him giving you that boost at the trade deadline last season, you would have to be potentially in line to move him just a half a season or so, or a full season later. Like, oh, man. I have said all of this to this point. It gets worse. Only Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison knew about the details of this trade. Anthony Davis didn't fucking know. Luka Doncic didn't fucking know. LeBron James did not know, as much people would like to claim that he did because of the league GM shit, right? Nobody had knowledge of this. This is huge. Especially in Luka Doncic's case. Anthony Davis started out as a Pell, right? He won the championship with the Lakers. He's done great work with the team. But Luka Doncic was literally trying to establish something there. He may have already done it to an extent. He may have. Because he's been that damn good this early on. This is only his 7th season. He's a 25-year-old. He hasn't even entered the average age for a player's prime just yet, and he's been doing all of this. And you don't have the gall to alert him that you're going to trade him. The man literally carried the mantle and the torch that was passed down to him from Dirk fucking Nowitzki. He was within a season of retiring when the Mavericks picked Luka Doncic up via a trade with the Hawks, ironically enough. Like, at that point, I don't give two fucks about the conditioning problems and the weight. He has done more than the team could have asked for when they invested in him. And you mean to tell me that he's going to leave his team a city that he called home for that much time. He's going to leave that earlier than Tre Young leaves the Hawks. He's going to leave that earlier than Zion Williamson, despite him being involved in many trade rumors this season, even thinks about leaving the Pelicans right now. You have to make it make sense, man. Like, I could give two fucks about that shit. I don't care. Then Nico Harrison later on has the nerve to express that they are also worried about the fact that he is going to be worth so much. Luka Doncic, according to multiple sources, was in line for a 5-year, $345 million Supermax extension in the offseason. You really believed for a second that you couldn't pay him that. What the fuck were the CBA and the new media rights deal for 11 years and $76 billion for then? You just had multiple games take place in fucking Paris. You have multiple global initiatives taking place with NBA sub-organizations and affiliations. You have money raking in from every reasonable area around the fucking world. When it comes to the big four sports, in terms of revenue, they are atop the list. And with all of that in play, it is increasing year after year after fucking year. And you mean to tell me that you couldn't fork over $69 million a year to a player who is your franchise? He is the Dallas Mavericks. And with the money being on the increase, that contract, you can give him that contract right now. In just a few years' time, it's going to look like gold compared to how other players will be getting paid. When you start talking about getting different players $80 million supermaxes and $90 million supermaxes, potentially $100 million supermaxes. $69 million is going to put you in a rut. Yeah, fucking right. It's worth it. He's been performing for it. But because you're scared to pay the man, and because his weight, his conditioning, he's gone. And not only that, this could be a motivating factor for him, sure. The fact that he will miss out on $115 million while being ineligible for the Supermax extension now because they're already paying that kind of money to, they're paying a boatload of money to LeBron already. They gave that kind of contract to Anthony Davis. And they are on the verge of being over the second apron. They couldn't afford to do it. So any star player like that to come over to the Lakers is going to be ineligible. But Luka Doncic gets a tough draw there. Don't care about the money in his case. Like I said, he was trying to call this franchise home forever, really. He wasn't expecting to go anywhere this damn soon even. He put out a press release later on in the day yesterday via social media, just trying to express his things. He desperately wanted to get them to a championship, and he was that damn close last year. Like, there's levels to this. He could have potentially done it within a couple years' time. The building blocks were aligned in all the right places. And it still wasn't enough for you to have faith in your guy and keep him. They're under different ownership. I'm telling you, Mark Cuban wouldn't let this shit slide. He has held him in such high regard. And even Nico Harrison spoke highly of him just a couple of weeks back. So what the fuck changed that quickly? They're going to need help in the backcourt. They simply will. Now, in the same case as I said, for the Lakers trying to replace Anthony Davis, you can't fully replace a player like Luka Doncic at this point. One of one talent that you literally traded for. Because the Hawks had the draft rights to him. You traded those rights and picked up the guy for your team. Then you just punt on him that soon. Now you've got to find somebody else. Gets even worse. Nico Harrison had the nerve to had the nerve to hold a press conference yesterday that I did end up seeing via a reaction from a different channel. Okay? He's sitting right next to Jason Kidd. He has the nerve to say a couple of things. That he's in alignment with Jason Kidd as a coach and GM should be. In that Jason Kidd, has certain archetypes of players that he'd be looking to coach. I want to focus on those two things. Okay? Let's look at the first statement. Alignment is being able to come together and be on the same page or come to a compromise about the situation. How can Nico Harrison truly be aligned with Jason Kidd in any sense of the imagination when this motherfucker, Jason Kidd, was only alerted by Nico Harrison that the trade had happened at 11 a.m. yesterday? Damn near 12 hours after the news broke. Instead of calling his phone up, you probably have his contact in some fashion. Call his phone, send an email, shoot a text, do something earlier than 11 a.m. in the morning. Just a few hours before the press conference. How do you think Jason Kidd is realistically going to feel about the situation? He doesn't even really have time to fully process it because he then has to sit in a press conference with your bum ass in just a few hours. And then the archetypes thing. Brother, Jason Kidd literally ran the offense around Luka Doncic's capability. Like, Nico Harrison, did you not grow up watching Jason Kidd play basketball in the league? Jason Kidd was nowhere near the scorer. But when it comes to playmaking, when it comes to basketball IQ, Kidd and Doncic are on the same fucking wavelength. That is the optimal player Kidd would want to coach. And you're going to try to speak for him and tell that man sitting next to you that there's a different player that you should be trying to coach. What the fuck are you talking about? No, that's not how this works. And in a few years' time, we gonna hear about a rift between Kidd and Harrison. Because I kid you not, they dismiss Harrison and they want to talk with Jason Kidd, right? As soon as this man, Nico Harrison, is about to get up and leave, this Jason Kidd, his entire body is shaking. His entire body is shaking. He about to do something to him. He's trying to beat his ass. Smack the fuck out of him. For all the stupid shit that he was saying in that press conference. And the fact that you couldn't even contact the man in real time as everything was developing. That says a lot about your capability and your, I guess, mindset as a GM. So if Jason Kidd feels a way about this, I can't blame him. He's well within his right. Oh my gosh. So, I guess with all that, man, looking at everything that they gave up, I feel like the Mavericks just completely bungled it, and the Lakers have won this trade. With the mere fact that Luka Doncic has not even entered his prime yet, and he could be there and build something in LA when LeBron James goes. You know, health is going to be a fair question, but when healthy, there's no denying how great he's going to be. When the Lakers had AD, there were still questions surrounding his ability to lead the basketball team. And if it was going to be LeBron's team or not. Now there's a contingency plan. A great contingency plan. Who can actively, if LeBron chooses to stick around for a little more, try to help him in pursuit of more glory, while also amplifying his own legacy. It's not necessarily clear cut, but I think the Mavericks screwed it up. I think the Lakers got it. The one thing that could save the Mavericks is the progression of Max Christie. Though I don't even know, honestly, in essence, with the fact that he had ramped up his defensive capabilities this season, maybe he should be starting for the Mavericks. But something tells me they're not going to operate like that. And they probably should give it a try. Still, it won't be enough to match up to what Luka Doncic would be doing for you in that same position. As for the Jazz's involvement in this, I mean, you really just look at the draft capital you're getting. You're settling for the fact that you're probably still in a rebuild. So you've got to get as much capital as you can. I don't necessarily see Jalen Hood-Schifino becoming an important player for them. I mean, unless they choose to move one of their other young guards, I mean, you have Isaiah Collier right now, you have Keontae George, and you have Colin Sexton. I don't see him finding any rotational minutes. I don't. And even when he has played, he hasn't done much of anything. So nothing suggests to me that he'll be able to do anything here with them. But you have to operate that way because that's how the logistics had to work out. You needed to pull off a 3-team deal to get a player of that caliber. Unexpected as it may have been, they got quite literally the guy. Now, another trade that would take place yesterday didn't take me a lot of time to process everything. It's still a crazy trade, but I mean, they set the bar so damn high. And I mean, honestly, some elements of the trade were expected. So we have the Spurs acquiring De'Aaron Fox, Jordan McLaughlin, while having to give up Sidy Cissoko to the Kings, giving up Tre Jones and Zach Collins to Chicago, and also 3 first-round picks. 1 in 2025, 1 in 2027, and 1 in 2031, along with 3 second-rounders, including a 2025 second-rounder, and 2 second-rounders in 2028, to the Kings. The Bulls would need to make this a 3-team trade, and they acquired Kevin Huerter from the Kings in this, while getting Tre Jones, Zach Collins, aforementioned, and sending Zach Lavine to Sacramento. You got all that? I'll just run it down again really quickly. So the Kings got Zach Lavine, Sidy Cissoko from the Spurs, 3 first-rounders, 3 second-rounders from the Spurs. San Antonio got De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. Chicago got Tre Jones, Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, and a 2025 pick. Had to give it a little bit of time. My first thought that comes to mind is that, this had been in the works, I suppose. They had been rumoring De'Aaron Fox going to Sacramento for a while, and even he stated that, in the event of a trade, this would be his preferred destination. So he does get what he's asking for, in essence. I mean, Jordan McLaughlin probably won't do too much for you, but I think it's a brilliant move for the Spurs to make. When De'Aaron Fox wants to, man, he is an unstoppable force when he wants to be. Let me just put it like that. Now, he had been struggling over the course of the last few games leading up to him even being thrown in any trade rumors. But still, this overall season has been on par with his Sacramento tenure over the past couple of years. He's right in the midst of his prime, averaging 25 points per game, shooting 46.9% from the field, also getting 6.1 assists, one of the higher marks in his overall career, and also 1.5 steals. Man, there's a lot to think about, because I guess the gripe that I have with this, and it could also be a strength in essence, clearly, De'Aaron Fox is an upgrade. Let's not get it fucked up. And it does amplify their chances to go relatively far. I'm not saying, they're going to contend for a championship this season. But I am saying they could be in line to make the playoffs with a move like this. And they're already... The foundation's already there. They're already near the play-in. So, this definitely helps them. But in terms of roster construction, it's kind of weird. I don't know. The one question that you would have to ask to start out is Chris Paul willing to come off the bench? Is he finally willing to do it? Because what eventually forced him out of Golden State, aside from them not really wanting to commit to him long term, was the fact that he disliked coming off of the bench. So you have to ask yourself, is he even willing to do that in this situation? My answer to that would be that he probably should. You do not want a defensive backcourt consisting of Chris Paul at point guard and also De'Aaron Fox at the shooting guard position. Despite him being able to pick pockets, he's very adept at that. There's no way. There's no shot in hell that's happening. Okay? So from a realistic lens, you're looking at starting De'Aaron Fox at point guard, Harrison Barnes at power forward, I guess. Center, you're probably going with Victor. You better go with Victor Wembanyama. I guess Jeremy Sochan could play power forward, I guess. Then Harrison Barnes at small forward. So you got De'Aaron Fox at the 1. You got Harrison Barnes at the 3. Sochan at the 4. And Wembanyama at the 5. Right? This is another question. Because this could be one of their greatest strengths. And also one of their, I guess, downsides. Not a full-on weakness. It might very well be a good problem to have. Their portability. They have had Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Blake Wesley, and Malachi Branham all play shooting guard at different points of this season, as well as Champagnie, though the first 3 names I mentioned would be in line to vie for a starting spot here. Do they feel that that is too much? Do they feel that one of those guys should be moved? And if they feel that way, who? Hard question. Hard question to ask. Because as a 6-man, Keldon Johnson has been performing fine. I mean, he haven't started him, but he's given you solid production off the bench. If you go with Devin Vassell here, he has gotten some starts, and he has also performed relatively well in that role. I mean, he's consistently been, though the points have dropped off naturally because you're trying to get different people touches and everything, he has retained a great 3-point percentage for his position, while also shooting 43.5% from the field. And in Stephon Castle's case, you may not be willing to do that because, I mean, you just drafted him. So would it be Devin Vassell or Keldon Johnson moving? And if you're not going to move either of them, well, who the hell is going to start? I mean, especially in Stephon Castle's case, he has dealt with efficiency problems, but he has been a somewhat reliable player for them, at least in their own minds. He started 28 games this season, and he's been a foursome defensive end. Which, when you look at guys like Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson, though, they have the frames to be able to make that happen. They have not done that. So what are they focused on? Exactly. Are they trying to build their roster, out the rest of their roster, on defense with the ability to terrorize in the paint? Or are they trying to build the rest of their roster on spacing? Because De'Aaron Fox does not solve that issue. If you start Stephon Castle alongside him, that could cause spacing problems in the backcourt. Harrison Barnes ain't that consistent. And Sochan can't space either. So you mean to tell me that Victor Wembanyama would be your specialist? As good as he can be, as great as he has been for a 7'5" player shooting from three, yet no, probably not. You may want to try to solve that problem. Oh, they're just in a really good spot though, to be honest. I think it's a fun problem to have. But I would expect another move from the Spurs for sure if they answer yes to some of those questions in terms of player movement. Because you can't try to hold on to that forever. Well, let's look at the Kings side of this. Yeah, I think it makes great sense. Optimally. But you're going to have a lot of the same things to sort out here. Zach Lavine's a great player. And if this were a few seasons back, there would be some problems. But this is a Zach Lavine who's been very efficient this season, shooting 51.1% from the field as a shooting guard or small forward, while also contributing his highest ever three-point percentage in his career at 44.6. To get a player shooting that prolific from three, who is just a little older than De'Aaron Fox, but still in his prime, and offloading someone who can't space the floor, even with De'Aaron Fox being a great franchise player for them, that's a great move. And for the Kings front office to be able to see that, though, again, fans will definitely, clamor for having De'Aaron Fox still. I guarantee you. I mean, not necessarily a player like Luka Doncic, but he'd been establishing something with that franchise. That's a guy who really could have been a franchise player if he wanted to be. But, granted, they figured this is the last year of his extension. They may have been anxious about paying him, and not to mention that he had been on the decline in just a few games. Maybe they felt it was time to make a move. In any case, it's a damn smart one, a damn well-timed one. The question is, who's playing what position for this team? Who is? Because we know that Zach Lavine can play shooting guard. I don't think that at a single point in his career, I do take that back. He did play point guard for in his rookie season for Minnesota. That roster was constructed very differently than this one is. Would you really be asking Zach Lavine to play that position now? I don't think so. I really don't. You also have to think about this from an overall team perspective with the Kings. Malik Monk had been your sixth man off the bench for quite a long time. This season has seen him step up as a playmaker. Don't get me wrong. 18 points per him this season, 5.9 assists is a career high. He's also nabbing 3.7 rebounds per game, while keeping turnovers at a minimum. Does it make sense for you to now give Malik Monk the reins at point guard? You then also have to think about what it means for the shooting guard position. Maybe you do keep Zach Lavine there. However, with what Keon Ellis has been able to do on the offensive end, the defensive end of the ball, he might see elevated minutes as well. So now you have a debate of whether or not you're going to start Ellis at shooting guard, or you're going to start LaVine there. You get the small forward, and now maybe you decide to go with either DeMar DeRozan or Zach Lavine in that position. Power forward, maybe you want Keegan Murray to get that position, but if you're trying to allocate minutes to Keon Ellis here as a starter, you're definitely going to make sure that you have LaVine and DeRozan in the same lineup when they're starting. So in that instance, maybe Keegan Murray moves to the bench. Domantas Sabonis is a short thing. Very short thing. Like, is that really a fucking joke? And I'm going to stand on it right here, right now. He should have been an all-star reserve. He should have. But that's besides the point. So you've got a potential line. You can go many different ways. But what I think that they would have to do, you're starting Malik Monk at the 1, LaVine at the 2, DeRozan at the 3, Murray at the 4, and Sabonis at the 5. Keon Ellis as I guess rotational piece. Maybe they want Sidy Cissoko to come off the bench as a potential 6-man to lead that unit as well. Jury's still out on him. Did not get a lot of minutes with the Spurs. But they would optimally be relying on him to kind of take over that mantle from Malik Monk leading the second unit to now him delegating the second unit and being a sort of floor general. I don't know if he has that in him. They may want to get somebody else. There's still a little bit of time to make something happen. So why not? As for the Bulls, they get Tre Jones, cool. He's definitely getting benched. Zach Collins could see starter level minutes, depending on what I'm about to say. And Kevin Huerter might also be a 6-man off the bench. He was that for the Kings for a little while anyways. It wouldn't be much different than that. But this tells me, goodbye Nikola Vucevic. Goodbye Patrick Williams. Vucevic has been around in trade rumors anyways. You know, I was quoted as saying that the Patrick Williams experiment was done when they got Josh Giddey. I am going to double down on it here with them getting Zach Collins at power forward. Because that's the position he'll probably play. I just don't see it. Like, Patrick Williams and Kevin Huerter aren't interchangeable, but when you really think about it, what has Patrick Williams' issue been? It's been spacing. He can't to save his life. What can Kevin Huerter do that Patrick Williams can't? Shoot the 3-ball. Efficiently. And he also, because they've been trying to utilize Patrick Williams like he's this dynamic offensive player, giving him so many touches per game. Like, why? He's not that guy. With Kevin Huerter, you don't have to worry about him trying to control the offense. He can shine in his role and not be a detriment to the team unless he's having an off night. And I think that is what will push the Bulls to make the move to get him out of there. I do believe that. I stand on it. If it doesn't happen, it just shows how stubborn they truly are. I mean, let's face it. If you don't, try to... Because I don't even know about a trade. But if you don't test the waters with a Patrick Williams or so now, let me tell you something. His value is just going to continue to decrease. You're not going to have teams ever ringing your phone dial, calling you up, and begging for Patrick Williams on the other line. He is not that kind of player. Some teams may have general interest. If you can't find a partner for him now, you will never be able to. Never. And you're going to lose him for effectively nothing. That's just my 2 cents on it. So, yeah, quite the day alone of trades, as they will continue up until February 6th. I know there may be more craziness coming. I don't even know about trying to cover the slates of games. Because honestly, these trades alone can have a massive impact on how the rest of these games are going to go. And what I do even end up saying, if I potentially were to try to cover some of the past games, may not even end up aging well in just a few days' time. Because, so much has happened on such short notice that a lot of the content that may end up relating to some of the games is just outdated already. Because certain players aren't there anymore, or certain storylines have now begun to form. So, it's just gonna be a melting pot. There are a lot of emotions with it. I'm excited. I'm very worried about this. And Warriors. I'm telling you right now, something's got to give. Something's got to give. You have these teams pulling that off. Both of these teams, ironically enough, are in the Pacific Division of the league, by the way. The Lakers and the Kings. You have both of them pulling that off. Like Steve Kerr said in the press conference, it would not be the wisest to stand pat. If you can't do something at this trade deadline, I love the Warriors. This is my team. But I'm telling you right now, they don't pull a move off. Oh, they're cooked for this season. And maybe even for a little longer than that. Because when times are changing like this, you gotta try to keep up. You can't settle. You can't just sit in the bleachers and allow this stuff to develop, right? You have to make something happen. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.